Aloha e Mālama Pono, everyone. Today we're going to share something from our friend Snake Blocker's martial art of Apache knife fighting and battle tactics. That's an indigenous based fighting system, as Snake is an Apache. And if you don't know, it actually strikes a chord with us because we're both indigenous as well. Nate and I are both native Hawaiian. I'm also part Blackfoot and Wampanoag. If you don't know who the Wampanoag were, they were the Native Americans that helped save the Pilgrims at the first Thanksgiving. And the Blackfoot were a tribe that were from the plains and actually were in that same area as the Lakota and a lot of other Native American tribes that have a very, very strong warrior legacy. And growing up, I had an opportunity to become a part of that. And so I've always had a connection there. And our friendship with Snake has helped to deepen that, honestly. So we know him through Bruce Lee's martial art of Jeet Kune Do, in which all three of us are instructors. And we see him every year when we go to honor Sigung Taky Kimura and train with his instructors conference. So we like to do a lot of learning and sharing and growing with each other, and so we share our skills with each other to continue to help each other to grow. So this particular drill is called broken branches. So if you imagine yourself as a tree, then if you were a living tree and you had a broken branch, you couldn't just stop fighting. You'd have to continue as best you could as a warrior under adverse circumstances. And in real life, that's the way it is, especially if you're a nice person. In a real fight, you didn't start the fight. So it might start with a sucker punch or something else that actually makes you begin the fight in an injured disposition. This is actually the true story, which I've never talked about before on video, of my own journey that inspired me to really delve into understanding the blade on a visceral level for hand-to-hand combat, for self-defense, because I was stabbed as a teenager. I went to a party where it was a quinceañera and a gang fight broke up, and I wasn't in either gang, which in a way is bad because then everyone in both gangs sees you as a possible enemy. So I was stabbed at the very start of the altercation, right through my right hand. You can actually see the scar right there. Went right through my hand, and that was the very beginning. The person lunged at me. I did a hollowing covering motion, which I had been taught. It was successful in preventing my small intestines from being eviscerated, but it did go right through my hand, which meant for the rest of that fight, I had no right hand in terms of use. So if you think about it in a fighting situation, if you were cut, then for the rest of that altercation, you might be somewhat disabled, but you can't quit. This is also true with injuries. In a lot of different martial arts, if you sustain an injury, then your doctor might advise you not to train at all because you have the injury. And yet, there is actually something to be said for training through an injury, in a sense that in real life, you might have that problem. Many of you know I do a lot of teaching for the disabled. I have individuals that are confined to wheelchairs. Nate and I are both also instructors for the One Touch program for the blind. So working against adverse circumstances is a part of who we are and a part of what we do. So this drill does highlight that. So what is the broken branch drill from Apache knife fighting and battle tactics? Well, basically it's as simple as this. If Nate and I were in a fight and clear, I'm going to have a training knife that's going to come into play there, and I'm going to hand it to Nate. So let's say I'm in a situation where I'm in a self-defense moment. First, I'll show you what really happened to me as a teenager, which he came in and I went like this, and the knife went all the way through my hand to where at this point it would be sticking out my hand. Now, the smart thing I did, without formally having trained it ahead of time, was I grabbed onto the hand with the blade sticking out of my hand and continued the fight from that point. in the real situation, I can't tell you it was anything all that glorious. All I did was prevent him from being able to continue to pump. And then I fought from here, which basically at that point I was using jiu-jitsu. I tucked my chin, did an outside reap type of throw, a sotagari in judo. The other individual, I drove him to the edge of a windowsill. He went out the window. That was the end of the fight. And at that point, I had a blade sticking out of my hand. Now, fortunately for me, it was not a full-size tactical blade like Snake's Apache Falcon, nor was it even any type of large knife. It was actually quite a small knife. But I left it in my hand, went to Bob's Big Boy, asked for a bucket of ice water, put my hand there, and then went to the ER from there. The surgeon said I was very lucky, and it was good that I did that Eagle Scout move of not taking out the puncturing object, because if you look at where the scar is, and I'm not sure that the camera can see it, but it was right next to the actual tendon and nerve that controls my index fingers. So for the rest of my life, I wouldn't have had full use of my right hand if I had handled that even slightly wrong. So I thank the good Lord for that one, because I wasn't formally taught what to do. It's just what I did. And then I remembered the Boy Scout first aid and followed that. But in the real situation at that point, I didn't have use of this. Plus the other problem was, if I did let go of this, then I'd have the problem that I'd be like this with my hand, and he would be able to do anything he wanted. And that's significant, because in real life, someone just doesn't go hi-ya and stay there. They continue to pump and do whatever they want to do to completely disable, destroy, or kill you. So that's a big problem. So in the drill, that's the scenario. Now, in this sense, the drill is set up a little bit like a duel, so that it's back and forth, meaning, clear, that means I also have a blade. So, in the scenario, let's say we're starting to engage, and Nate gets a good cut on my arm. Boom. Now, I might not have full use of this arm, because, as you know, the way your forearm is designed with brachioradialis on this side and tensor carpi on this side, is you have the ability to compress or extend. So you have flexors and extensors, and depending on which side is injured, you might not be able to do this, or you might not be able to do that. So in this instance, per the drill, if I'm cut here, I then want to try to transfer my weapon to the other hand so that I can still utilize it. This arm might be too injured to effectively use. I might still be able to use it to cover my liver. I might still be able to use it to deflect something, but I won't have 100% usage of it. So now, from this point, he's continuing to try to do something, and I might have to continue my fight from that point. Okay? So the idea of this is it could be anything in terms of the branches, meaning the limbs, right? If we want to, we have this branch, this branch, this branch, and this branch. And depending on where you're cut, it can be a big deal because of your arteries. You have the brachial artery in the arm, making it the perfect analogy for this drill, brachial branch. Okay? But but we also have all the other major arteries that run through the body, particularly the femoral artery, quite a dangerous place to receive a puncture wound or a slash. So, in the drill, let's say Sifu Nate cuts me here, boom, I'm like, ow, I transfer, oh, start again. Ow, I transfer this, and now I know I'm injured on this side, and so maybe I want to be weapon forward if I can to be able to engage. Maybe it's a longer engagement, but the idea is I have to function from that point in an incapacitated way, where I still have that warrior spirit, I'm still able to fight even without the use of this limb. Okay? So, this would go back and forth. So now it would be Sifu Nate's turn. So we're in the situation back to zero, where now I'm the aggressor. I see him out here, right? I get a good cut. Now in that case, he was cut on the inside, right? Which is more dangerous in terms of blood loss, but now he doesn't have that hand. So now he has to fight from there. Whether he uses that for defense or offense, the next movement he does without the use of that arm.
Because yes, it is true. I was kind of inside. I'm compressing it to my body. so I can make that loss of blood a little bit less.
Right? So then,
this way.
now we're here, he maybe got a little cut there, I'm trying to operate, we're moving in this range, boom, right? He's trying to get me, oh, he got me in the knee, right? So now, I don't have full use of my leg. You have the iliotibial band that runs down the knee here, that's gonna make me almost fall over, and I might even fall over, right? Because it's a pretty good place to get somebody. So now, I feel this collapsing, right? Boom! I might have to eat it, right? I might be fighting like this, but now I've gotten him and he's gotten me, right? So now we're in this situation where we're fighting, okay? And who knows what's going to happen? I can use my legs to try to anchor this down and try to get control of this grip, and now finish the fight from there, all right? So, conceptually, what I want you to see is it doesn't really matter what it is, as long as it's a branch that you can still fight. Now, some of you might be thinking, what about this branch? Well, unlike the movies, as a paramedic, I can tell you, you'd be surprised what you can still do, even if this is injured. I mean, sure, yes, sure, if someone gets a fatal shot on you where they go right into the artery and forward, and now they've actually severed your airway and everything, okay, yeah, you're done. But even then, as a warrior, you'd want to try to get one more in to, to not give up, all right? So conceptually, that could happen. He could possibly get a backslash on my neck or something. I might try to minimize that, right? But now I don't have use of this, and maybe I have to fight from here. Okay, so this is the concept of the Apache knife fighting and battle tactics drill of broken branches. We'll give you a couple more examples, okay? So we're in here. This time it'll be Nate's turn, right? So he gets me somehow, right? Boom, ow! I have to switch grip, right? I'm using this to defend as best I can, and I got him a little bit in the leg, I got him a little bit here, boom, and now I got a good shot in, right? That would have been to the lung, trying to get a pneumothorax. So then now he'd have a breathing difficulty. Again, he's not dead though. So now we'll flip it where he now has this lung injury. So he's trying to prevent that sucking chest wound from taking him out so that he can get something in. So now he's the injured one. We continue to move around and spar, right? And we're moving around and we're getting what we can. And he's got to try to see if now he got me in the leg. Now I'm down on one leg, and he's able to get a good shot on me. If you can see this conceptually, you can even train this to develop a specific attribute. Meaning, if you're naturally right-handed, you want to be better at left-handed, then always have that right arm be injured, and then have to become more skilled at being able to defend yourself and fight with your left. If legs are an issue, like those of you who know Sifu Nate, he's very, very agile, very good at footwork. So if that's the first thing that gets ruined on him, he now has to be able to fight from that position. This also is quite an opportunity when we get to the ground, because then we can employ more of the jiu-jitsu into our game and be able to develop those skill sets as well. It is significantly more dangerous because both of us are tigers with teeth. It's a different deal if I'm dealing with this unarmed. And even though that isn't how the drill is initially presented, there's no reason why you can't go there, right? So if I do not have the blade and the fight started with me getting cut, now I'm still cut, I now mainly have the use of my left arm. So maybe I jab the nose, maybe I'm here now, it becomes a different deal, right? Where I'm going unarmed against armed. But to make it, in its initial iteration, a back and forth drill, clear? Okay. Then we're gonna be doing this as a back and forth, where he cuts me somehow, right? Ow. Then I'm getting him somehow, right? So then it continues in this iteration. Then it would flip, right? We start the fight, somehow I get him nice and good, he has to now fight left-handed, which maybe isn't as good for him because he hasn't trained it as much. Now we continue with the drill. So back and forth, back and forth. It gets kind of fun when you do the legs. But what I'm trying to say is if this is new to you, you can go step by step. Train at no right arm, now you got to use your left. Train at no lead leg, now your lead leg becomes disabled. This is very important with kicks, all right? So in other words, let's say Nate opened with a kick because he's good at kicking, right? So he opens with a kick, I slice his calf, maybe catch him in the hamstring there. Now he doesn't have that agility. So now he's pretty much on one leg. He might even be hopping, right? And he has to be able to deal with me in this kind of capacity with only one leg, right? Vice versa. Maybe I opened with some type of a kick, right? Bam, and then he catches me. And I know now that I can't maybe fight very well with one leg. So I'm looking to use my legs to defend without arterial exposure. And now we go from there. All right? Anything you want to add, Sifu?
Yeah, so like exactly, like there some of the competitions we've done in Portugal with knife fighting, and
yes,
they actually used not really soft weapons. They were like, it was like a wooden piece, I guess, wrapped in
a little bit of foam.
Yeah,
little bit of foam.
I think it was just duct tape. I think it was just duct tape. It felt like just duct tape because I really did have all the bruises to show for it.
Yes, we did.
So yeah, it was all over my ribs on this side and this side because obviously they're right-handed, most of them, just swinging off with number one strikes. So my left arm and my left side rib cage was getting beat up. But yeah, definitely, it does take a toll on the body. You gotta know how to take those injuries and continue to go on. Even in the lightsaber world, we get hit in the hands a lot. And in Jeet Kune Do, we want to defend the snake a lot. So
yes,
the limbs are definitely a big target and something you gotta deal with in this drill. We're having to switch hands or do with the injured leg. Those limbs are targets and potential targets that are gonna get cut. And it's a good point of extension or flexion. I might lose one of those movements, and then I've got to figure out how to fight from that combat situation and continue to keep going and survive. So it's a very good drill. We did have a good time training it, and it's a very fun one. Something that's almost like a kid's game, right? But even some of my students in the lightsaber school, they get hit and they pretend they don't have an arm or a leg, and then it's actually kind of like that in a way. It's in a more practical sense though, not just for fun. It's actually thinking about, okay, what would you have to do if you actually got cut there? And I like that he made it like one and then another. So like if you got cut here, then you lose that one. But if you get cut in every place, it's not like you're gonna go with two arms and then you can't get anywhere.
Right. If it becomes a war of
yeah.
Because if it becomes a war of attrition, now you're in Monty Python land, right?
Just the flesh wound.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
It's just a flesh wound.
Yeah.
Come on back. Fight! I still want to fight!
Right, exactly.
So yeah, if it becomes a war of attrition, it can get kind of crazy. But at a high skill level, it actually can also be kind of fun, right? What if you had no arms and the other guy still has a knife? Now your feet have to be really good.
Right.
So, and then some of the takedowns with your legs can become more valuable. And now you're in a whole different world. But the will to survive is core to the indigenous way of the warrior, whether it be Apache or Hawaiian or some other form. Every culture in its primal state has this as a consistent truism of the way of the warrior. You cannot be broken from within. So, forge your warrior spirit and try this drill, and aloha and mahalo to our friend Snake Blocker. Mahalo.